NATO's leader stepped in with some quick damage control. He said Trump is putting Europe and America at risk. This as U.S. lawmakers worked over the weekend trying to get an aid bill passed for Ukraine and Israel. President Biden says the failure of Congress to support Ukraine would amount to criminal negligence. The president is also growing publicly more frustrated with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, calling operations in Gaza over the top. Independent Senator Angus King spent the weekend with colleagues working on this foreign aid bill, just days after making an impassioned speech on the Senate floor.
Whenever people write to my office, they say, "Why are we supporting Ukraine?" I answer, Google Sudetenland, 1938. We could have stopped a murderous dictator who was bent on geographic expansion at that time. I say we, the West, at a relatively low cost. The result of not doing so was 55 million deaths. That chapter has haunted me because it echoes so strongly in what's happening now in Ukraine.
And Senator King, welcome now to the program. That was a very, very dramatic and historically focused comment. And I wonder what your colleagues, said to you about that, or do you think it will focus them to eventually pass this aid bill?
Well, I got a good response from my colleagues. A lot of them saw it or they saw the video of it, and most of them agree. When I say most, last night we got, I think, 67 votes to move forward on the supplemental bill. That's a pretty good indication of solid bipartisan support, and I'm deeply hopeful that that support will continue over the next couple of days as we work through this process to get this bill, this crucial bill, passed. As you point out, Christine, this is historically important. It would be a catastrophe if the United States walked away from Ukraine in this situation. It would embolden Putin, it would embolden Xi Jinping, it would undermine the confidence of our allies. There could not be a worse mistake in the 21st century than walking away, quitting on Ukraine.
Senator King, you said about emboldening adversaries like Putin. So what is your assessment? How did you take Trump's comment, which we played at a campaign rally? Essentially, he used the word encourage Putin to do whatever the hell he likes.
Well, when I first saw it, I thought it was a joke. I thought it was some, parody or AI-generated fake. I mean, I can't imagine someone saying that. The essence of our national security strategy for 80 years has been deterrence. The best war is the one that's never fought. And the way to avoid fighting a war is your adversaries know that they will face overwhelming results and consequences if they commit aggression. To have said something like that, which basically he said to Putin, I don't care what the hell you do if they haven't chipped in adequately according to his standards, is unbelievable. I mean, it just sort of, it completely undermines the concept of deterrence, because it's not only deterrence, it's an invitation. And by the way, in terms of support for Ukraine, I often hear around here, well, we're doing too much, the Europeans aren't doing enough. Christine, as a percent of GDP, we are 15th in the world in terms of our support for Ukraine. Number 15, virtually all the European countries are ahead of us. I think Estonia is contributing something like 5 times as a percent of their GDP than we are. So this idea that the European countries aren't stepping up, aren't participating, as I said on the floor that day, is just bunk.
And actually, just a week or so ago, the Europeans very conspicuously stepped in with a $50 billion or euro aid package for Ukraine, while I'm sorry to say you in the United States are still fumbling around. I know that you're trying to get them to pass it, but I want to ask you more about this Trump quote. The Secretary General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, doesn't usually quickly rush out to talk about internal, U.S. policy or statements by candidates. But he did immediately step out and in a prepared statement said that any suggestion that allies will not defend each other undermines all of our security, including that of the U.S., and puts American and European soldiers at increased risk. So that's that point. I want to ask you whether like some of Trump's defenders, do you think that was just a Trumpian crazy comment on a campaign? Or do you believe that Trump should be taken at his word, given that he is the front runner, for the GOP?
Well, another quote I used in that speech that you played a clip of was Maya Angelou, who once said, if someone tells you who they are, you should believe them. He told us who he was. He told us what his policy would be. He's been threatening one way, shape, or form to get out of NATO since he was in the presidency. So this comment was shocking and, as I say, pretty much unbelievable, but it's consistent with the direction that he's been moving ever since. It goes this whole idea of America first. That has echoes from the 1930s. And that means we don't keep our commitments, we don't side with our allies, but NATO has worked. It held the Soviet Union in check for 60, 70 years, and to undermine the confidence that our allies have, and also to invite aggression from Vladimir Putin is the sheerest folly. As you can see, I'm for a U.S. senator, I'm sort of speechless. It was really an amazing, appalling statement.
As you heard, President Biden, along with the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, essentially said that if the Senate doesn't approve the foreign aid package, it's close to criminal neglect. Republican Mitch McConnell, the minority leader in the Senate, made a big appeal. GOP Mitch McConnell made a big appeal over the weekend. Just take a listen.
I know it's become quite fashionable in some circles to disregard the global interests we have as a global power, to bemoan the responsibilities of global leadership. This is the idle work for idle minds, and it has no place in the United States Senate.
I mean, again, that's pretty direct commentary and advice to the Senate, of which you are a member, of course, and you were probably there when he was saying that. So we talked a little bit about whether you think this bill is actually going to get through.
Well, number one, I was there when he made that speech, and it was a very powerful speech. And as I say, there's strong bipartisan support. We got 67 votes last night. I think we could be headed toward even a more lopsided vote in the next few days. I certainly hope so. But are we going to get it done? I think so. Here's what's going on now. And as is typical in many pieces of major legislation, both sides have amendments that they'd like to raise. In order to process amendments, you have to have a time agreement, because under the arcane rules of the Senate, each amendment theoretically could take hours and, in fact, even days before you would get to a vote on the amendment. So it involves a little bit of comity, a little bit of cooperation to say, okay, we're going to do the amendments, but we're going to collapse the time. Right now, several of the members are saying we're not going to cooperate, we're not going to collapse the time, we're going to require this, to go for weeks. And I think once that happens, if indeed that's what happens, we may end up moving to this bill without amendments, which would be a shame. But I think the people who want the amendment should be the ones saying, hey, let's make a reasonable arrangement here so we can get this thing done.
Mm-hmm. And can I just switch a little bit to, another very, very difficult war, and that's the one in the Middle East, which increasingly President Biden and his team are publicly expressing frustration with their ally Netanyahu in Israel and urging restraint on civilians and a proper workable plan to remove any civilians from Gaza out of harm's way. How that would happen is difficult to say, but, even the British Foreign Secretary has said, that they are very, very concerned. What do you think U.S. policy should be right now on this issue, given according to the Palestinian health authorities, there's nearly 28,000 dead, including children in Gaza since October 7th?
Well, 3 weeks ago yesterday, I was in Benjamin Netanyahu's in a meeting with him, directly across the table, and made the same point. One of the points I made was the bombing that you're now doing is harming Israel and civilians more than Hamas. It's counterproductive. And the same goes with their sort of half-baked lack of cooperation with humanitarian aid. Now we're talking about an attack on Rafah. You got to remember that a month and a half, 2 months ago, the Israelis were saying, move out of Gaza City, move south to the civilians, move to the south of Gaza, because we're going to concentrate and get Hamas. The civilians did that, and now they're talking about attacking the very regions where the civilians went in order to seek safety. I understand the president's frustration. Benjamin Netanyahu, if he were here, he would say the Israeli people are shocked and horrified by what happened on October 7th, the worst attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. In Israel, and you've probably been there, Christine, in Israel, it's still October 7th. Mm-hmm. That horrendous act is still reverberating. However, what the Israelis need to go after Hamas, but the question is how to do it and how to minimize civilian casualties, because, and this is what I said to Netanyahu, I said, you may be winning on the ground, and I'm not even sure that's happening now, you may be winning on the ground, but you're losing the information war. Mm-hmm. And this bombing of civilians, finagling with aid and those kinds of things are not doing Israel any good. I said this as a friend of Israel, as a supporter of Israel, but this is a very difficult situation. One idea that I've suggested to the White House is that we move a 1 or 2 hospital ships to the Mediterranean. Mm-hmm. On the side of Gaza. Gaza borders the Mediterranean. Let's move those hospital ships there so important health care can be provided without Hamas being in the basement. And I think that's a way that the United States could make a really significant contribution.
Yeah, and one of your allies, France, has done that, and it actually has worked. So that would be interesting to see. Can I just finally ask you, because it looks like it's going to be a Biden-Trump matchup, Bob Bauer, who's President Biden's personal lawyer, said the special counsel report about Biden's memory went, quote, off the rails. So from your perspective, as an independent, when it comes to November, what do you think voters will think? Are they going to be focused on Biden's age or Trump's volatility and the kind of things that he said about Russia and the like?
I think the answer is both. There's no question from just talking to people, polls, all the information that people are concerned about the president's age. They're also concerned about the nature of Donald Trump, what he's talking about doing, the damage he would do to the country. So it is a concern. I think what Joe Biden has to do between now and November is demonstrate to the American people that he hasn't lost a step, that he's able to give and take and work in an open and unrehearsed setting, and convince the American people that he's still got it. That's going to be it's going to be an issue in the campaign. There's no reason to deny it, and we'll just have to see how and in what way the president steps up.
Senator Angus King, thank you very much indeed for joining us.